So here's a video about people with borderline personality disorder. Now, before I say the things that I'm going to say, keep in mind that I am not a licensed professional. So, yeah, with that being said, I'll just head to it. So, if you've seen a good handful of my videos, you might have caught on, pretty quick that I am not a very religious person. I actually do have a video that I want to make specifically in relation to my narcissistic personality disorder and how I see God as the, manifestation of the insecurity that humanity has all together. But for this video, yes, I'm primarily going to focus on borderlines, and I figured that Borderlines, the title of this video is pretty attention grabbing. I'm not saying that every single borderline is a believer in God. I'm sure there are borderlines out there who are also non religious, atheistic, agnostic, or whatever. So I'm not specifically talking about you if that's the case. This title is just, yeah, admittedly to get clicks because I was thinking about something and I think it's a fair point and assessment to make, especially in relation to Christianity in terms of how, I mean, no offense, but if you are somebody with borderline, you might be easily suckered into believing in God and, devoting your life to Jesus, maybe let's say more than like a narcissist such as myself. And I wanted to follow along with that because I think it's pretty easy to make the pattern that a relationship with God is no different than the relationships that a person with borderline personality disorder basically emulates in their life. Because, I mean, what is the simple talking point already that God will always be on your side? God will, always look after you, all that kind of stuff. So you can see how these things might be very appealing to somebody with borderline personality disorder, but especially in relation to Christianity, we're taught that we are born as sinners. The whole thing with Adam and Eve and how, oh, she ate from the tree and then suddenly all these things came about and now we need Jesus there to save us and whatnot. Now, I feel that once I say that, it should already be easy to piece together the point that I'm actually trying to make, but I'll just say it, obviously. Is that not any different than the childhoods that a lot of people with borderline had in order to become borderlines in the first place? I mean, they grew up being taught that they needed to be dependent upon their parents, their caretakers, so they don't really have a way of sustaining themselves and they always need to look for it for in another person or whatnot. Now, doesn't God just sound like the perfect thing to put there if you don't have anyone in your life that you feel, oh, cares about you, is looking after you, blah, 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 or like whatever? And how convenient of an excuse do you have to say, oh, well, nobody can really comprehend God's glory and whatnot? So it's funny because we can think about BPD and we can feel, oh, so horrible and terrible about all the things that they've gone through, being like emotionally neglected and being programmed to be dependent upon other people or their parents or like whatever, and we can feel bad for people with like BPD and whatnot. But if you give it another name, if you give it another label, if you call it Jesus is love, if you call it like Christianity, then it's super different. Because think about it, they make borderline people like basically in their like development like so insecure that they feel the need to be so latched on and not really like speak out against, like, I guess, let's say, basically being trampled on. And when you associate this with God, it's, oh, how dare you speak against God? How dare you, criticize God? God is so much better than you. Oh, you are actually worthy of hell and like whatnot. That's why you need to be like saved by Jesus or something. So, it's the same emotional, manipulative sort of tactics that would lead somebody into accepting Jesus, believing in God, in the same way as to how somebody grows up in a certain childhood and essentially becomes a borderline to begin with. So I thought that this video should just be made just so a lot of you with BPD, who just so happen to be religious, or even if you don't have like BPD in general, I'm examining it, and essentially I would perhaps go as far to say as believing in a God, believing in the Christian God, let's say hypothetically, or let's just say like an Abrahamic sort of like God, makes you codependent in a way that you wouldn't even recognize in yourself that you might go after people with BPD for. So, there's just so much irony there in terms of, let's say, like the stigmatization towards like cluster B disorders and, saying that, Jesus saves, when in particular, a certain cluster B disorder, you know, exists literally because of the same mechanisms of this, supposed religion. So,